Basically, it's just the same PowerPoint that we shared back in 2018 in Rhode Island, with a few edits, like one being the date. And I think I deleted a slide or two because doesn't apply to this. So basically going back to our strategic plan that was developed in 2014, 2015, goal number 4 was to restructure the organization into a federation style structure. And the stakeholders that were involved, or that are still involved, are board members, the bylaws committee, our legal counsel, and of course the membership. And currently our board structure looks like this, which has served us well for maybe the first 15, 20 years of our organization until we started having international growth. I do believe there were a couple of Band-Aid solutions, like adding Region 6 and 7, member at large 2, once Millie had retired from the board. Currently, our board members number 9, and board members have dual roles, like region rep and executive board. So what Ray and I had come up with under the current board structure, or under the proposed revised board structure, is we would start out with our own executive. So these roles would not have dual roles, meaning Abby would no longer be president and Region 3 rep. She would just be either president or the Region 3 rep. And if you notice, the member at large is now a part of the executive board. Member at large 2 would be reallocated as a region rep. We feel that since the member at large is a representative of the entire voting membership, that they should be a part of the executive board. And then moving on to region reps.
Sorry, can I just cut in there? Just on that exec board, it was just like it says at the bottom, that the difference between now is that the current board would vote for the executive, but moving to this model, it would push it out. So the entire membership get to vote for the executive. So the membership is dictating who their president is, who their vice president is, rather than the board that is voting for who would hold those roles.
Correct. That is correct. And then on the region reps, this is what the proposed structure would look like. So if you notice, we've gone from 5 United States representatives down to 3 North America representatives. So I'll show, we have some graphics that will show you those 2 extra United States reps would get reallocated somewhere else. South America, Europe, Africa, Australia, and Asia. Australia would get their own representative. At this point, the North America, let me back up. It's not the most perfect solution, but if we're seeing growth in Africa and Asia, it could very well we could take one of those North America representatives, move them to either Africa or Asia without changing the makeup of the board, which would number 15 at this time, because you would have your 5 executives, and then the added regional reps. Again, the board term limits would remain 3 2-year terms for a total of 6 years. And then Ray created these handy little graphics, which show what North America would look like, where Region 1 and 2 would combine, Region 3 and 4 would combine, and I believe 4 states from Region 4 would move over to Region 5, and that's where you see the blue. If you've also noticed, I'm not totally using region numbers. I'm using geographic locations. I believe that geographic locations is a lot easier for the membership to understand what part of the where they lie or where they fit in the overall scheme of where we are as far as representation. I know we've had Region 5 members that are like, am I a member of Region 4 or Region 5? And they don't know what region they're a part of. But I think to make it more simple, in Europe, you have the Europe West and Europe East. And if you're living somewhere in the Ukraine or Germany, you know I'm in the East. Or if you're living in the UK or Ireland, you know I'm part of Europe West. And I think that would alleviate some of the confusion as to what region I'm actually in. And if you notice, we've included Canada in that North America part, so and Mexico. So
and that was one of the bits of feedback that we did get from Canadian members, that they didn't feel that they should sit in with North America because they're not North America. They're currently not allocated a US current rep, so why would in a restructure them, we're sort of pushing them under that US blanket. So I don't know if this model was to be voted on, whether there's a little tweak to that, whether Canada becomes its own region, because the feedback from the Canadian membership was that Canada is so large as a country, it warrants its own representation rather than sort of being buckled on to its bigger sister, shall we say.
And then this would be the map of the world, and if you notice the colors, Ray had sorted out what parts of the country would be represented. As far as the voting structure currently, members vote for any board representative regardless of geographic location. So I, as a Region 5 member, can vote for a Region 6 member or a Region 7 member. And then once that's done and the board meets face to face, they choose the executive officers right before conference, and then they're announced at the end of the business meeting at conference. And then those board members take on their roles at the conclusion of that conference. So the proposed voting structure would be that members vote only for the director in their geographic location. Yes, in the previous business meeting, it was voted on that members could run for pretty much any board position, and that's still true. But the members that live in Region 6 could only vote for officers in the region they live in. And then the members would vote for their own executive officers. So if I'm running for president and Abby's running for president, the membership could vote for either one of us, the entire membership. And then again, board members would take on their roles at the conclusion of the conference. This one, the new one is what we've noticed, Ray and I, in our 5-6 years of running on the board, is that board members that rolled off tend to basically cut and run. So we agreed, a few of us agreed to stay on for a few months for transition purposes. So as part of the proposed voting structure, that outgoing board members would stay as ex officio for 3 months after their term ends. And that's just to button up any loose things, transfer banking stuff over, contacting our legal counsel, our accountant, letting them know, hey, I'm now rolling off the board. So-and-so is now your new point of contact, just to make sure that transition is smooth and we're just not saying, all right, I'm done, peace out. The proposed timeline, this is one of the edits I made, would occur over 5 years, because I feel that we need to make sure we do this correctly. So it would, granted, when it passes at the next business meeting, we would start with the 2023 elections. It would have to include adoption of the new bylaws, because this is a bylaws change. drawdown of United States reps. So it would be meaning, region 1 or 2, that rep goes away. And then there'd be a couple of, a few special just 1-year elections, because we also want to make sure that we're staggering our elections, odd years, even years, just to keep that consistency. So that way we still have members, we still have a full complement of board members. Again, the dissolution of the 1 member at large, but that would not dissolution, but just moving it to being a region rep. And then again, creating the world region reps. So the ones that are outside of the United States, basically. And eventually this would be where we are as far as voting, odd numbers, even number years. This is where we would be. And then, like any other challenge, we have benefits and challenges. So a benefit would be is increased workforce in the board level. We now have 15 board members instead of 9. So there would be an increase in productivity, increased worldwide representation, because right now it's 1 person for the northern half of the world and 1 person for the southern half. We have an increased chance of further growth and development of the organization, and the executive board holding 2-year terms allows for more consistent leadership. So Abby's term, and I'm sorry, I'm picking on you, Abby. Abby's term as president is 1 year. And if she chooses to run again, then yeah, there's a 2-year term. But this way, if Abby decides I'm going to run for president as just president and not region 3 rep, she would be president for 2 years. And I think that consistency will strengthen the organization. Of course, challenges, costs will go up. To have 15 board members, to fly them all over the world, to go to conferences, put them up in hotels, that its cost is going to go up. How much that cost is, I couldn't tell you. I believe the board was supposed to do a cost analysis of that. And again, as it is now, finding members to nominate to run for positions, especially from regions that have little or no CODA presence. A big challenge is approving changes to the bylaws. We need 2/3. And one I don't think is a huge challenge, but is a challenge nonetheless, is language barriers. If somebody from a country that English is not their first language or not their primary spoken language, that will be an issue. So I don't know if we need to hire interpreters or what. I think that's an issue that we need to face once we get there. And then this one was the oh geez, English, just speaking of English, the sliding scale, which I believe is already in place and running. So we don't need to worry about this. And any questions?
I'll kind of start, if I could. I'm glad that you said that there's a possibility for tweaks, because I think that would be important for any plan model that we went with, that a tweak, we see them, an error, what we thought before an error, we see that. So let's just tweak it to make it better. I think that's true even for the 2020 model. There's just some tweaks that we have to do. But thank you for presenting. Any other board members? I saw Ganila's hand go up.
Yes, I heard there were a comment from the Canadians, how they looked at the region. Have you had any comments from Europe or for European members about this region suggestion?
I have not, because when we presented this proposed restructuring, I believe it was my last year on the board and Ray's last year, because we rolled off the board the next year. We had tried to get this to be voted on in France, and we were unable to. I can't speak for the next board. I do remember that, yeah, Canadians were talking about they wanted their own rep, and that's a good opportunity because we still have 3 reps in the United States, and we could just easily move one of those up and say you're now this is the Canadian rep. So then there would be 2 in the United States, and we can just do East and West. Again, with as far as Europeans, I did not receive any feedback. Again, I can't speak for the board that took on this project after Ray and I both rolled off.
Likewise, I think so. I'm going to speak neither for nor against this proposed restructure, even though it has my name against it. I had quite an in-depth conversation with Adrian. I can't remember if it was just before he stepped down or just after. But I really believe there's a chicken and an egg situation with this. Did we not get European feedback because Europeans aren't engaged with the organization because they're not well represented? Or did we not get feedback because they're not interested in being engaged? And I think I had the conversation with Abby as well, that at some point it kind of, obviously I know we're at the stage where we're talking about restructure plans, but does the organization need to go, do we need to restructure because a strategic plan from X amount of years ago is telling us we need to restructure? The world's a different place. COVID's hit. We've all been in lockdown for God knows how long. The world's a different place. Because that strategic plan years ago said we need to restructure, do we need to restructure? I don't know. I think it's a chicken and an egg situation. I think some people don't engage with the organization because they don't feel well represented, but equally, some people don't connect with the organization because they never will. And in Europe, you know, I know Adrian was quite vocal about the fact that Europeans wanted something themselves within Europe. So yeah, that's neither speaking for or against any. It's just sort of a general comment of, does it need to be done, and how do you engage that feedback? Because I think Abby, you're right with the tweaks that need to be done. And, you know, that only one bit of feedback was from the Canadians. So then how do you solicit that feedback from, one, the wider membership? So yes, this session can be recorded and shared with the membership, but what about the non-members that don't engage because of the current structure? You'd want to get their feedback to find out why they don't engage and whether they would engage based on this new structure. And then I also think there's got to be some look at, you know, numbers of members per country. You know, obviously that's going to dictate how many representatives there are for that region, but then equally the ones with lower member numbers could dictate a higher representation number to drive the membership in that region. So I think that there's a lot of thought that needs to go into it. I don't think, personally, again, you know, my name's against this model with Robbins, but personally, I don't necessarily think it's a ready to go model to pick up and run with, because I do think there's a lot more thought and tweaks that need to go into certain bits, like the number of representatives and where they're based.
And I'm the same way with Ray. I'm not married. This was something I came up with in the shower. I do my best thinking in the shower for some reason. And I'm not married to this. If somebody has a better idea, I'm all for doing that better idea. It was just, let's take what we already have and kind of expand on it and make sure that it's by no means, it's not 100% fair, I guess, because again, we still have 3 representatives in the United States, but it's a lot better than what we're currently doing, I think. I'm sure that people would disagree with me that no, it's not better than what we have, but it's a little bit more leaning towards it's fair. The only thing that I think I did not mention was if you look at the picture of the world map that Ray had created, those lines where east and west and north and south are, they're kind of arbitrary, because at this point we don't know where that line needs to be. And that's where we would need the membership's help. Like we want to say, all right, well, Western Europe should be these countries and Eastern Europe should be these countries. And Gunilla might say, no, these countries need to be part of Eastern Europe and these need, so that's where that line, I honestly don't know where that line needs to be drawn. And same thing with the United States. We have 3 regions in the United States. Well, is that where we want those lines to be? Do we need to tweak those a little bit? And that's another part of that discussion. 1, do we need to restructure? And B, are the lines where they need to be? Do we need to increase to 17 board members and give Africa 2 and give Asia 2? Because even with this, Asia is still a big place. Africa is still a big place for 1 representative. And that's a discussion, again, that the board can have and bring up either before or at the next business meeting.
Thank you, Robin and Ray. Stella, go ahead.
I think what your proposition is valid. How do I say this? We got to have a stepping stone somewhere. We can tweak it later. It's just like you said, it's just something to grow with. And eventually we just got to find out what we're going to do,
Trudy, I saw your hand up. Did you want to say something? Okay, go ahead. And then Leah.
Thanks, Abby. And thanks, Ray and Robin. It's good to see you. Thank you for taking time to share this with us. It's so important. And I'm sure all of us are very grateful that you've taken the time to do this. When you look at the strategic plan, it talks about creating a federated organization like WFD. Your proposal is an expansion of our current structure. I wonder, did you think about the possibility of going the federated route, about splitting off CODA US from international and using that approach? And if so, why did you decide to go this route?
We figured this was a good first step in going towards a federation. Not looking at WFD's model, I could only assume that like representatives from each country or a region, and this could just very well, we could at one point say, okay, everybody's going to have their own CODA organization, CODA Europe, CODA Africa, CODA North America, CODA United States, whatever we call it, whatever it's called. And then we can use the CODA International model to say, all right, this is what, CODA, instead of maybe the membership voting for the executive officers, the like CODA, I'll just use North America for an example. CODA North America will vote for their representative to go to CODA International. And I don't know how that looks. I was just thinking when we started this, that this was a good stepping stone towards that. I think we needed to get something out to the membership. And this was, to say, hey, we are working on the strategic plan. And we realized that, the biggest thing was you guys wanted a federation style model. And I figured this was a good stepping stone towards that.
And there was also, in brief conversations with attorney lawyers, 501c3 implications of branching out that CODA International into, it was described to us as parent, child, grandparent kind of structure. If CODA International then becomes a grandparent organization, and you've got CODA Europe that's then a child, and then CODA Europe West and Europe East as grandchildren, it starts to muddy the water with 501c3 regulations. And then obviously it's a US based model, which wouldn't necessarily work outside of the US. So it was a lot more complicated, basically, which was why we sort of moved away from it. But then I come back to that question of the world's in a different place now compared to when that strategic plan was made. I was always intrigued of where that WFD model came from and how it ended up in the strategic plan. And I wonder how many of the people that were passionate about having a WFD federation style structure are still involved with the organization now, and whether that would still be something that it'd be interesting to know if we pushed out a survey to the membership, whether that'd still be the same thing that came back.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate that insight.
Leah?
I don't have like a particular comment about the restructure this plan, just because I'm newer and I'm like learning the ropes and stuff, but I really love what I'm seeing like in the presentation. And I just wanted to recognize your guys' time that went into making it. And because I know it was, a few years ago, but I just like want to recognize the time that it took to really brainstorm and meet and put that together. And even years later, be able to share that. So I really appreciate that. And I want you guys to feel valued in that way, even though you guys aren't on the board anymore. But thank you so much.
I'm not going to lie, when we got asked to present, I did message Robin and was like, can you even remember what the model was? It's like years ago.
Wow.
That's why I asked for copies of the presentations, because I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. That's what we did.
Will we have, will that be shared with the board so that we can reference that in our documents? Because I would love to be able to just look at it on my own time and stuff.
Yes.
There's also an outline. It's a few pages long. And again, the dates are off because we wrote it way back in 2018, but Stella should have that in her Region 5 drive.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah, and Stella can share that out with you guys.
Okay, thank you so much.
Only because I just shared it with them the other day.
Yeah, because I didn't have it, because I wrote it in the Region 5 drive.
I could also add that that information is in the office hours letter that was sent out. It's in there as well. You can click that, or if you would prefer a PowerPoint with that information can be sent out as well.
So I just want to say thank you, Robin and Ray, for sharing this presentation today. I don't know if it's because I've been on the board for some time and I've been looking at this for a lot of times and I understand it, or I'm digesting it better, but I felt like this presentation today, I wish that's how it was introduced to us back then, because the other way that it was presented to me as a member at that time, I was overwhelmed. There was so many different models and I kept thinking, oh my goodness, this is going to be so expensive. How could, a Region 1 rep put all this together and be effective at it? Like, it was overwhelming. And even when I got on board and I was vice president, that was my job, was, looking at the strategic plan and the models, and it was so overwhelming. So so many things are in my mind. I wish I could say it all right now, but I'm trying to digest everything. So thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing that presentation. I'm still trying to understand which model you were really referencing, because there's several with this presentation you just showed us, or you're just giving us the overall picture. So I have a lot of questions. I'm still trying to put everything together, but I feel like the way you presented today was very helpful. But can you tell us which model were you really referencing when you mentioned this presentation today, or just?
I'm trying to understand when you mean which model, what are you?
There's several models. I believe there's 5, right? Abby, do you have access to those models? Because there's the current, there's a Ray Robin model. What else?
Well,
there was a few models.
I've told Stella that this is not the Ray Robin model. This is the 2018 model. So it's the one that we wrote, but it's the one that was developed in 2018. And again, I'm not at the point where we're competing with other models. It's just, this is the one we wrote. Again, like I said, it's not a perfect model. It's a good starting point. I'm not married to it. And maybe whatever Jenny presents on, if we merge the two and come up with one that would be great, that would be fine too. I'm not married to this.
this has been a big deal for our organization. We've been
it's-
all working on this. So this is our common goal right now, is like,
Right.
let's get this together for members, and we got to get it together before we can present it to members. So, I really hope that you guys could continue to help us navigate through this, because it is really, it's complicated, Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to jump in here. Our time is getting close to the end. And we do have one more video to watch. Jenny is on video, so I was just going to start hers. We have time for one more question. Are there any other questions before we absolutely go to another? Any questions? No? Thank you so much, Robin and Ray. I really appreciate you going back many years to 2018 and doing something that you really didn't have to do, but I so appreciate it, so that we could get an understanding of what it is that we need to go forth with. You're absolutely right. Anything that we choose can be totally tweaked. If it's not the right time, and all of the restructure plans are voted down, then that's it. I mean, it wasn't the right time, and that's kind of how I feel. If it's not the right time, hey, we tried and it was in the strategic plan. You asked us to look at it, but you guys said no, hey, that's it, and done. There's no other new plan to come up with. This is what we're going to go with. We're going to just keep going. So I really appreciate you guys with your sharing us with your insight and your the plan, and and just sharing with us. I really appreciate it. So thank you for your time.
No
And
problem.
thank you.